Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Japan and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now these guys are another relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but over the short time they've been around they've brewed a lot of different styles, they've been pretty experimental and they've built up a very good reputation for themselves, I have to say. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't tried from these guys before. It's a very popular style of beer, of course, and there are more and more breweries kind of specialising in this style across Japan, which is interesting to see. But needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head up to Shiga Prefecture, which is a bit to the north of me here in Osaka. To be specific, we are going to go to Omihachiman City, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Two Rabbits Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Tsuurabi Down Under. It comes in at 6.5% ABV and they're describing this one as an Australian IPA. So yeah, I'm not sure whether this is going to lean a little bit more toward the West Coasty side of things or be more kind of New England hazy like, or if it's going to be somewhere in the middle like an American IPA. It's basically an Australian hot IPA, having looked it up. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. This is the very first IPA that I'm trying from Two Rabbits Brewing Company. The last beers that I had from these guys, the first one that I tried was a wit beer if I remember rightly, and then the last one was an English bitter with a bit of smoky character to it. So yeah, we've had interesting beers from these guys in the past, so hopefully this one carries on in the same vein. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's all about. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Two Rabbits Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just go to the homepage, use the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, whatever you like in there. If reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries and you'll find this one in the Japanese playlist along with many other things, and there are playlists there for a number of other countries as well that you can check out. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then and I'll tell you a wee bit about Two Rabbits Brewing Company once again. So, Two Rabbits Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Omihachiman City in Shiga Prefecture close to Lake Biwa, and these guys can be found in the heart of the old town with the old canals and things. So it's meant to be pretty nice actually. If you look at the pictures of this place, it looks like it would be just very chill to go and have a wee walk around. So something I need to do in the future. But the brewery was founded back in late 2017 by Ayako and Sean Collett along with Batbatar Pure Ochir. So Sean is originally from Australia but was born to New Zealand Kiwi parents, and he met Bato while they were studying for their MBA at Kyoto University. But Bato worked for a number of years in IT while Sean had been working in the oil and gas industry, and Ayako studied in Australia for a number of years and worked previously as a primary school teacher. But today she is the company head and runs the business side of things while Bato and Sean take care of the brewing. So the name Two Rabbits comes from the old Japanese saying, if you run after two rabbits then you won't catch either. But originally they were very small in production, only producing a small amount of bottles and the rest of the beer in casks. And they had two series, the original series and the classic bunny series. But they were running a tap room at the brewery and they've since opened a bar across the water which is called the Rabbit Hutch. So yeah, you can drink the beers very, very close to the brewery. But in more recent times they've been upgrading the brewery infrastructure, brewing more different styles of beer. And they're now canning their beers as well, as you can see. The first beer that I tried from these guys was like a 350 milliliter bottle, if I remember correctly. But as of April 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 140 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. And like I said, there are many different styles from these guys these days. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Two Rabbits Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys though, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more up all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a wee look at the beer itself. So just to let you have a wee look at the artwork with this one then, you can see up here in the katakana Tsurabi, which I'm guessing is maybe one of the names of the bunny characters that they have there, but there you can see the rabbit just chilling with the koala next to Ayers Rock, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, this is a limited release beer. There you can also see the Two Rabbits Brewing Company symbol as well. But yeah, this is a 360 milliliter can, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, some breweries have 350s, I've seen 370s here in Japan as well, and I've seen 330s, so there doesn't really seem to be a standard measurement here actually, which is kind of interesting. Some places use imperial pints, 568 milliliters, some places use 473. This is just one of the kind of quirks that you're going to find in Japan actually. But yeah, to tell you a little bit about the beer, so this one has a malt base of Cooper's Pale, Golden Promise, Caramel and Crystal Medium, and then it's hopped with a good number of Australian hops, hence why they've called it an Australian IPA. So the hops in this one are Eclipse, Galaxy, Ella and Victoria's Secret, and they're using I think they're using a Verdant IPA yeast in this one. But yeah, to go through the hops on this one, brain is kind of dying there. I'm trying to remember the facts about these hops. Eclipse is a new Australian variety, about 16% alpha acid, normally gives you a lovely big kind of orangey character. Galaxy we know quite well, 14% alpha acid, it gives you a big kind of pungent passion fruit with a good little bit of mango and sometimes pineapple and things. Ella is kind of the little sister of Galaxy almost, and it gives you, I find that Ella, when I've had it before, gives you a wee bit of a more, it leans a bit more toward the pineapple in my experience, and it's a wee bit more oily I think, but that's about 15 or 16% alpha acid as well if I remember correctly. Victoria's Secret is quite similar in its profile to Galaxy, once again about 12% alpha acid, and it gives you a kind of nice big juicy mango from what I remember, and a wee bit of more apricot-y character. So yeah, a good array of Australian hops in this one. It's not often that you find a beer that is solely hopped with Australian hops, at least for me, being based over in Europe. So that was the main reason that this one caught my eye actually. So yeah, and it's my first IPA from a brewery that are pretty damn good in my experience. So yeah, that's everything we need to actually say about the beer. We said it's 6.5% ABV, Tsurabi, Down Under, Australian IPA. Let's get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about, and we can get rid of the brewery notes now. So, a little bit of spark has opened this one up there, but we'll get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. Oh, this looks interesting. There we go, that's a nice pour actually. Give it a good little bit of head, which is always what you want. So, yeah. This is quite interesting. So this is, I've got a feeling this well might end up being more of a kind of West Coast leaning IPA, if that makes sense. Before the head disappears though, we can see that this beer is poured with just under a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head there. Some medium sized bubbles sitting toward the bottom and a few bigger ones as you go up toward the top of the head there. But overall, it does look pretty damn nice. Yeah, I do like that with this one. In terms of the colour of this beer, it's got a lovely kind of medium amber, I would say, and you can see it's got a little bit of natural haze to it. This is an all barley malt beer, this one. I made the notes on the beer for this a few days ago, so I forgot exactly what kind of IPA this one was. But yeah, this one, with it, when it's all barley malt, it is most likely to be a kind of West Coast leaning IPA, this one. So one of the main differences between West Coast IPAs and New England's, the New England IPAs use wheat and oats as well as barley malt, whereas West Coast IPAs use, for the most part, barley malt. It's not unheard of to use a little bit of wheat or a little bit of oat in there as well, but yeah, for the most part, West Coast IPAs are all barley malt. But yeah, colour-wise, this one looks very nice. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put in the beer as well can affect the colour. But when it comes to IPAs, you don't often have to care about those latter 2 variables, I would say. But yeah, this one, it does look very nice little bit of natural haze, and as we said, a kind of medium amber colour to it. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation, just 1 or 2 bubbles there and a few going up toward the bottom of the head. But yeah, I think that's everything that we need to say about the appearance of this beer. Let's have a wee look at the aroma and just see what it's all about. That's quite interesting, actually. It's got quite a wee bit of a kind of grainy, bready character to it. And then you've got all the hoppy character coming out of this a little bit above that. Yeah, that's interesting. The malty character in this one really has a lot more graininess to it than I would have expected. I wonder if that's the Cooper's Extra Pale, actually, because, you know, Cooper obviously very popular kind of home brewing brand and beer brand in Australia, but I always remember their beers had a little bit of a more kind of grainy character to them, and you can really pick that up in this beer. You've got a good little bit, this beer kind of gives you everything you would expect, though. There's a bit of sweetness in there, good bit of green component, and you've also got the nice big kind of oily fruits. But I do suspect this beer is going to be more of a kind of West Coast type IPA for sure. But let's try and break this aroma down for you and just describe it that wee bit more in depth before we taste the thing. So yeah, for me, when we sugar this beer up, there's absolutely a little bit of a kind of brown bready bread crust coming out of this one. You can feel that in the backbone, you can smell that in the backbone of the beer, I should say. There's a little bit of woodiness in there, a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker, and yeah, the way that that goes together is pretty damn interesting. But on top of that, you've got a good little bit of kind of wholemeal brown bread in there. I'm getting a bit of white bread as well, actually. And when you sugar the beer up, if you go further, it's kind of interesting because when you go really deep into the nose like this, you start to get more and more of the kind of grainy side of the beer. But if you're a bit further back from it, you actually get more of the sweet kind of side of the malts and the fruity character. So that's an interesting point to make about this one. But yeah, so on top of the kind of brown bready character that's in there, there is definitely some white bready note. I would also say there's a wee bit of sweet caramel as well, and some kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes. But yeah, I'm just surprised at how kind of grainy the backbone of this beer is. I really did not expect that from it, I have to say. Yeah, big, grainy, almost like vegetally, herbally kind of notes coming out of this one, so that's pretty interesting. Yeah. So, aroma-wise, on the green side of things, it's quite nice. There's a little bit of earthiness coming out of this one, and I'm not sure exactly which of the Aussie hops would give you that earthiness. So there's a wee bit of earthiness in there. Like I said, a good little bit of herbal character for me, but then you've got a nice kind of bright floral aromaticity coming out of this one. And yeah, a little bit of grassy, zesty character in there, but it's got a nice kind of oily, yeah, it really has a nice kind of oily green component to it as well. So what you have to remember with IPAs is that there are three kinds of hoppings you can use. Early addition hopping, which, assuming you have a 90-minute wort boil, takes place in about the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness. Late addition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil, again 90-minute assumption there. But yeah, that gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, gives you all flavour and aroma. So yeah, West Coast IPAs tend to use all three, whereas New England IPAs tend to rely a little bit more on the latter two. And what that translates to in flavour and aroma, in aroma particularly, the deeper danker character will push more. The deeper danker character will come out more than the brighter notes. In the New England IPA, because of the late addition and dry hopping, you're going to get a brighter, more floral character rather than the deeper danker side of things. And you can smell in this beer that it's got a combination of both. So I do suspect that there's been early addition hopping in this one as well, because there is a wee bit of a deeper danker character coming out of this beer. So yeah, the green component in this one is quite nice actually, quite a bit of zesty grass, more and more floral character, but yeah, quite a wee bit of an earthy herbal sort of thing to this one, so that's quite interesting. On the fruity side of things then, let's have a wee look at this. I think we've said everything we need to about the green component of the beer. For me, the fruity side of the beer I'm getting a good bit of the orange, like the eclipse is coming out of this one. The eclipse in this beer is quite apparent for me. I'm not sure exactly what ratios they've used in this one, right enough. But yeah, big kind of, yeah, definitely a big oily kind of orangey character in there for me. Behind that, you have a little bit of a, yeah, behind that you've definitely got a wee bit of more oily pineapple, and I'm getting some kind of oily mango in there, a little bit of passion fruit as well. That's going to come from a mix of the Victoria's Secret, the Ella, and the Galaxy. They're all going to contribute little things like that to it. But yeah, the pineapple, I think, in this one is quite prominent. Yeah, for me it's mainly pineapple and oranges that I'm getting out of this beer, actually. Yeah, so as I say, a little bit of stronger passion fruit, wee bit of kind of juicy mango and apricot and stuff, pineapple, and then a big orangey oily character. So yeah, I really like how that goes together with this one. Yeah, interesting aroma, I have to say. A lot more grainy and earthy character than I was expecting. So yeah, sometimes you get beers that are like this, where the aroma can deviate quite a little bit from the flavour and so on. But yeah, this I think might well be one of those beers. I think a lot of this kind of grainy character, it might well come from the Cooper's Pale Malt, because I remember the Cooper's beers being a little bit more kind of grain and things, but it could also come from the yeast. But as I say, I'm quite familiar with Verdant IPA yeasts, and they don't, yeah, they don't normally have this kind of earthy herbal sort of thing. But yeah, anyway, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one now and just see what it's all about. So yeah, this one is theツウラビDown Under, 6.5% IPA from two Rabbits Brewing Company in Omihachiman City in Shiga Prefecture. They're calling this one an Australian IPA because of the hops. I think it's going to be an Australian hopped West Coast IPA. But yeah, let's get stuck in and see what it's all about. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah. It's interesting, this one, actually. It actually has, we should also say, I'm saying it's called an Australian IPA because of the hops mainly, but yeah, the malts, the Cooper's malts, as we said, are also Australian. This for me is quite interesting because it actually has a wee bit more of the kind of grainy and bready character that you would normally associate with an English IPA. So it's almost like an English IPA but with Australian ingredients. Yeah, that is quite interesting, this one, I have to say. But yeah, quite a grainy and bready affair, this one. Good little bit of sweetness out of it. Nice, yeah, the green component in this one is pretty interesting too, but lots of big oily fruity characters. It's a nice beer, this one, actually, I have to say that. I think it's pretty fresh as well. I think it looks like on the back, from what they're saying, it's, I'm not sure, it says something about the 23rd of March, it says something about March 2023, so I'm thinking that might be the canned on day, but it could also be the can ending day. I think this one is, it feels as if it's pretty fresh, actually. And I bought this one at the Hanshin department store here in Osaka, who usually have pretty fresh beers from all these little craft breweries that they have. So I don't think this one will be out of date or anything like that, because yeah, with the kind of more grainy aspects, sometimes if you've got an older West Coast IPA, these beers, the kind of hoppy character can drop out and give you a more kind of grainy kind of note. But yeah, this one does feel kind of pretty fresh, I would say, but it does have a wee bit of an English IPA kind of character to it, and that must just be the malt and the yeast and stuff like this. So this is interesting. For me, this is a really quite interesting array of things that's going on in this one. And that's what you want after 3,700 reviews. You want beers that are going to test your palate a little bit, and this one will. So yeah, where do we start with this one then? We'll start in the middle third of the palate with the beer, and then just break it down as we always do. So yeah, middle third of your palate on this beer, the backbone of the beer is absolutely like a kind of wholemeal, brown bready bread crust there. You can absolutely feel that. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a kind of woody character out of this one. You can absolutely feel that, like, so fresh, kind of wholemeal, brown bready bread crust, a little bit of woodiness in there, and on top of that, there's almost a little touch of a kind of crackery layer. But for me, it's actually quite a sort of wet. It's actually kind of more of a wet brown bready bread crust that's in there. Above that, you've got the kind of wholemeal brown bready layer, and then you also have a kind of more white bready character above that. So for me, the malty side of this beer is actually quite layered. Above the bread, you start to get the kind of sweeter, kind of caramelly and brown sugary sides of this beer. So this is quite interesting. Like, above the kind of white bready layer, you've got a circle there where all the sugars kind of come out. And yeah, the kind of, like in the dead centre of your palate, you've got a sweeter, more oily caramel in this one. And as you move further out from that, it becomes a little bit more, it kind of has a little bit of a kind of butterscotchy, butter candy note. And then as you move out toward the edges of the palate, it's got a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to it as well. But yeah, like I say, the whole vibe of this malt base, with the more kind of grainy character that it has, it is a wee bit reminiscent of a more English IPA rather than all-out West Coast American. So yeah, I mean, for me, West Coast IPAs can kind of go one of two ways normally. They can be a little bit more kind of oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or they can be a little bit more kind of light and bready and biscuity, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing. So yeah, worth keeping that in mind, I think. So yeah, beyond that, I think we've covered everything we really need to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer. Let's go on to the back third of your palate. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, again, is quite similar. You've got a lovely little bit of kind of white bready, of kind of white and brown bready build up in there. You can feel that. And the back third of your palate, the layers are quite similar, but they just have a bit of a slightly different vibe. So yeah, you have that kind of dry bread crusty note there. And as I've always said, you know, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more kind of grainy and bitter flavours come out further back. So yeah, you've got a really nice mix of how would you say, you've got a really nice mix of kind of grainy bread crust in there. You can feel it's a little bit drier and stuff on the back third of the palate than it is further forward. You can feel a bit of the cracker in there, but then the wholemeal brown bready layer in this beer is a little bit taller for me, a little bit taller, a bit more airy. The white bready layer kind of sits above that as well. And yeah, I do like how that kind of pieces together. Above everything else, you have a little bit of a more you do have a little bit of a more you have a little bit of a more sort of kind of yeasty and farmhousey bready character. So yeah, there's like a more airy, farmhousey, crackery, woody sort of bread sitting above everything else on that back third of the palate. But definitely on the back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I think that covers everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of this beer. Let's look at the green component of this one then. So yeah, back corners of the palate, you can feel there's a little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward in this one, you get a little touch of herbal character, and as you push toward the front corners of your palate, you've got a little bit of a more kind of floral aromaticity of this one. It's quite an oily floral aromaticity for me, and round the front curve of your palate there's a little bit of a grassy note. It's like a wet, freshly cut grass kind of character that's coming out of this beer. So yeah, that's definitely interesting as well. On the the front third of your palate, then let's look at the fruity side of this beer. The border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a kind of bready, build up in there. So like a kind of white bread, brown bread sort of thing, and you can just feel that. And then the base of the front third of your palate, you've got the bread crust again, the white bready notes, and then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a look at these kind of oily fruity notes to round off the tasting. So yeah, for me, I think the orangey flavours kind of dominate in this one. So I think the Eclipse is the one that's giving you the majority of the kind of flavour in this beer. So yeah, at the back of that, I would say, yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a stronger passion fruit. Then as you move further forward, it kind of mellows out to be a bit more oily and bright. A little bit of more oily mango in there, and as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of apricot and stuff underneath, but then an oily pineapple sitting on top. And then you have a little bit of a, as you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue, you've got a wee bit more of a kind of you've got a wee bit of a more kind of big, just oily, orangey character. But for me, the predominant fruits in this beer are the, it really is more about the kind of oranges and the pineapple and things like that, and they linger into the aftertaste. I find the Eclipse is a bit more, it is the kind of more dominant hop in this one compared to the Ella, the Victoria's Secret, or the Galaxy. Like the other three kind of seem to be combining together, but you get a lot of pineapple in this one as well, which I think is going to be the Ella. It's going to be all three of them, I think, of the more tropical hops, if we can call them that, are going to contribute a wee bit of pineapple there. So yeah, that's quite interesting in this one, I have to say. Mainly kind of oily orange and pineapple, actually, out of this one. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour of the beer. Let's just round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, the mouthfeel of this one, it's right in the middle of the spectrum, this one. Mid-bodied, maybe pushing top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. Quite an oily and slick mouthfeel in some ways. But yeah, kind of what you would expect from a West Coast IPA, to be honest with you. The mouthfeel is pretty much spot on. But yeah, the malty side of this beer, I would say, like I said earlier, there's a good little bit of graininess and dryness to it, a bit of smoothness, a little bit of sweetness on top. This beer really is, stylistically speaking, it's like a West Coast IPA, to be honest with you, but it has a little bit of that kind of more English IPA graininess to it, which is quite interesting. The green component in this one, I don't find this beer overly bitter. I think it's maybe one of these kind of more modern takes on a West Coast IPA with less bitterness. I think it's maybe about 40 or 50 IBUs at the absolute most, but always take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt. That's my weakest point of beer reviewing. So yeah, a little bit of bitterness in this one. We've covered the malt base, a good little bit of sweetness on top of that as well. I think this beer gets a wee bit sweeter the further into the aftertaste you go, and then you've got the nice fruity characters. For me, the fruity side of the beer is quite oily. It leans more toward that citrusy orange side of things, but you have a nice oily pineapple in there and some drier tropical fruits behind it as well. But yeah, interesting beer, this one, and I think everything goes together really nicely with it. So yeah, interesting stuff there. A more grainy, it's more like a West Coast IPA, this one, with a bit of grainy English character underneath it, but I think that's maybe just the nature of the Australian malt a little bit. The Cooper's malt was always a little bit more grainy in my experience. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So this one was theツウラビAustralian IPA, 6.5% ABV from Two Rabbits Brewing Company in Omihachiman City, if I'm getting that right, if I remember right, Omihachiman City in Shiga Prefecture in the Kansai region here in Japan. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, from Two Rabbits Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slange, Scott, cheers, Kampai, and thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out theirs, and we'll no doubt return to these guys again fairly soon. Cheers.